Scooby-Doo as an IP means a lot to me. I grew up on What's New Scooby-Doo, which objectively has the greatest Scooby-Doo theme. Mystery Incorporated is one of my favourite animated shows, and I even had this crappy Mystery Machine gummy maker when I was a kid. I own bobbleheads of it now. I played the video games as a kid, but there are two products of the Scooby-Doo IP that stand out to me more than any other. And that is the two live-action adaptations from the early 2000s. The first Scooby-Doo film to me is timeless. I'm heavily biased, I understand this. But when I say timeless, of course I don't mean things like the jokes or the CGI or the cast, because yes, some of the settings and jokes are stuck in 2002. Yes, some of the CGI is pretty disgusting, and yes, the cast heavily screams 2002. Except maybe Linda Cardellini. However, I think that everything about that is what makes it so timeless. The 2002-ness oozes so much personality that it's grossly fun to watch and live in. The cast is perfect. Matthew Lillard as Shaggy especially. The CGI is early 2000s and goofy, but it's fucking Scooby-Doo. If the CGI was great and less cartoonish and ugly, it would be honestly so much worse. Every aspect of where this film may fail somewhat objectively, it succeeds despite that because of how well those things play into the fun of this property. It's known for being dumb and goofy and repetitive, but that's what makes it Scooby-Doo. But this isn't about that film. This is about a film much greater. Now before we get into that, sequels are hard. But there are many examples of a sequel being better than the first, despite what Randy in Scream 2 believes, but we'll get there one day. To me, Terminator 2, Empire Strikes Back, Toy Story 2, Aliens, Shrek 2, Pearl, though technically a prequel, Spider-Man 2, Paddington 2, Kung Fu Panda 2, Evil Dead 2, though interestingly wasn't meant to be a sequel, and Blade Runner 2049 are all superior to the film that came before. Which is all personal opinion, of course, but one film is greater than all of those. Or well, greater at least at being a sequel. And that film is Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed. I adore this film so much. I even have a tattoo of the bunny that Scoob draws in this one joke. To me, a perfect sequel requires 4 exact things to be successful. 1. It needs to expand upon the world of the original without rehashing the plot of the original. 2. It needs to give the characters new arcs, conflict and motivations. 3. It needs to introduce new characters that are memorable and aren't just filler characters. And 4. The sequel must be able to stand alone. If your film does all of these successfully, you're well on your way to creating a brilliant sequel. Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed does all of these and more. So let's go point by point and see why this film succeeds at every single one of them, and then in the end just explain why I love this film in general. So first, it needs to expand upon the world of the original without rehashing the plot of the original. So in the first, Mystery Incorporated splits in the beginning, and they get brought together by a business mogul to unlock the mystery of Spooky Island. The entirety of the movie mostly takes place on Spooky Island, which is great to put our characters into a claustrophobic space, and their dynamics are realised to the audience. It's like experiencing characters in a vacuum. But the second film moves our gang to their hometown of Coolsville. We explore the many areas of Coolsville, including the Mystery Inc. headquarters, the museum, the faux ghost bar, the wider city, underground layers, the old headquarters, and even a prison. These locations flesh out the world and make it feel lived in and much bigger than we get to experience. Secondly, it gives the characters new arcs, conflict, and motivations. In the last film, every character had a definable arc. Velma struggles with feeling like the nerd that has no real weight in the group. She does all the work without credit. Fred, in tandem to this, has an ego and likes to take credit and steal the shine. Daphne struggles with being the damsel in distress all the time. Shaggy falls in love and struggles to maintain his friendship with Scoob as he's blinded by Mary Jane's obvious evil intent, and Scoob struggles with allowing his friend to branch away from him slightly and have a life of his own. But in the end, Velma grows to like her role in the group and she becomes comfortable in her position. Fred becomes less selfish and shares the light with the rest of the gang, especially Velma, giving her credit when it's due, completing both of their arcs. Daphne literally learns karate and becomes capable of saving herself. Scoob and Shaggy learn that they're each other's best friend and their loyalty to one another cannot be broken or misshapen by outside forces. All great arcs for a very simple and funny family story. And then in the sequel, Velma struggles with love and her trust issues, identity issues and independence. Fred struggles with his image. His ego is still a problem, but this time it's finding his self-worth and not depending on his public image to find it. Daphne is actively trying to find her voice in the group after discovering she's capable of being more than a damsel in distress. Scoob and Shaggy go through the same arc, which is that they share the same feeling of being useless to the group, the screw-ups, so they attempt to become better detectives. But by the end, Velma discovers her confidence and realizes, even though she is a nerd, that it's completely okay to be that way if that's truly her. Socially normalized femininity counts for little if it isn't how you define yourself. Daphne finds her path in the group as the shoulder in the end. She's used to leaning on people, but became the one to lean on. She helped Velma discover herself, and same for Fred, who finds that his opinion of himself and the group's opinion of him is what means the most, not the public. Scooby and Shaggy learn that they aren't great detectives. But that's fine. Their role as the lovable goofballs is equally valid to the dynamic of the group, and they bring the heart to the whole ship. So, as you can see, everybody goes through new arcs completely localized to this film. I think that this is mostly because of James Gunn's writing. He wrote both films, so he was able to write a through line for both films that carried through their arcs overall in the duology. Thirdly, this film introduces new characters that stick with you. Namely Seth Green's character Patrick, but there's also classic side characters in Old Man Wickles, Heather, and my favourite, Jonathan Jacobo.
The original pterodactyl ghost.
All of these characters, minor and major, are memorable and have decent stake in the plot, whether that be a fake out villain, a twist villain, motivation for the protagonist and antagonist, or backstory needed to further the plot. Also, did you know Callum Worthy is in this film?
Nice job last night.
Lastly, this sequel more than stands alone as a film. The mystery does not leech from the last. In fact, this story is set quite a while after the first and works as an independent Scooby-Doo story that you could pick up without any prior knowledge of the first. This is aided by the new characters, the new arcs, and new setting. Everything is bigger, bolder, and fresh, and that is so beautiful. It likens to Empire Strikes Back, it likens to Terminator 2, and I know to some people that might seem like a ridiculous comparison, but it's the fundamentals of a good sequel. So that's why it just works as a sequel. It nails all 4 of those points. But to why I personally love this film, aside from why I think it works on every level as a sequel, well, honestly, I just kinda do. I think the aesthetic of this film is incredibly fun. The bright colours and the near sci-fi designs are impossible to not stare at. Every action set piece is unique, and the sets that are built practically are incredible. The CGI is still shaky, but I honestly love it despite that. The film is quotable, or at least to me. I can quote this film line for line and it never lets up on the energy, the feel-good moments, and even the terrifying nature of some of it. There are moments of real horror and clever writing. The jokes are hilarious, as to be expected with James Gunn. He blends intellectual and dumb fart humour really well, and all of it is aided by the performances being given by the cast, which is still spectacular. I think Gunn writing these films genuinely helped him be able to write the Guardians films later on. It's a semi-similar group when you truly think about it, and the way those character arcs progressed felt like a natural extension of what he was doing in this film. The heartwarming ending likens to finishing an episode of Scooby-Doo with the reveal, the lessons and the come-togetherness of the group. It truly captures what makes the source material brilliant and, well, timeless. The Scooby-Doo name has been going since 1969, and for good reason. These characters, their values and dynamic can be written into any era and it still work. That's why it's been rebooted so many times and doesn't feel stale. Every child has their version of Scooby-Doo. It's something the new Velma show missed, which I know has been dunked on a million times before, so I won't stick on it, but it seems to miss the heart of Scooby-Doo. It misses everything that makes their characters great, especially Velma herself. The live action films never felt like that. They truly had the soul of the cartoons. They even felt like cartoons most of the time. It's clear everybody involved in making these films loves Scooby-Doo. Plus, it works for every age since the themes are universal and there's jokes for literally everyone. All of this combined with a childhood obsessed with these characters and story, I will never not love this film, and by extension obviously the first. It may not be objectively the best film and it may not be as successful as other sequels, but I adore it. And for everything I said here and more that I didn't, it will always be in my top 5 no matter how much the other 4 rotate. So with all that said, have you seen Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed? If so, let me know what you think, what you thought of this video, and whether it's one of the Scooby-Doo live action movies or not. As always, keep watching movies.